Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity by Attia. This book is a scientific investigation of how we can live longer and, more importantly, live with a higher health quality into old age. Because he argues there's no point in increasing your lifespan if you don't also increase your time of healthy years. The main way to do this, and I would say the thesis of his book, is to move on to medicine 3.0. So medicine 1.0 was back in the days of Hippocrates. Medicine 2.0 was in the mid-1800s when we started getting into germ theory and getting to the cause of disease and looking at the microbes and the biology of what's going on with human anatomy. The limitations of medicine 2.0 is it's very aggregate statistical, whereas in medicine 3.0 it's focused on the individual, and where medicine 2.0 is on treatment of diseases, medicine 3.0 is on the prevention of diseases. So in this book he goes through the main 4 causes of death and lack of quality of life. There's cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. And in this book he goes through the history and the science of each one of them. The science and the history of all 4 of these diseases are fascinating. It's pretty dense scientifically, but it's not too dense to where you can't sort of follow along if you don't have an anatomy background. Then he goes on to talk about the cures, or what we can do now to minimize the effects of these things on our lives. So there are 3 things that I really like about this book. One is that it's very optimistic. The good news is that all the things that he talks about to prevent the 4 horsemen later in life, you can start doing now, and it'll make a serious difference. A lot of problems are preventable by taking action now. The second thing that I really like about the book is the outline. It's very easy to remember exactly what's in the book, which I really appreciate in writing reviews like these. Like, it's easy to go through in my head everything that he talked about, and I think that's a real compliment to the book. And the third thing is a lot of the advice that he gives is very common sense. This is the opposite of anything trendy, anything that's like clickbait, like try this one weird trick and then you'll lose all your belly fat or something. The first and biggest thing to do to improve your quality and length of life is exercise. He says that repeatedly in the book, that if you get nothing else from this book, just remember that exercise does more for you than any drug that you could ever be prescribed, which was surprising to me. I didn't realize that exercise was so encompassing in its good effects. Then he talked about eating, which again, I'm glad he wasn't into some fad diets. It's very simple math of calories and balancing your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And then he has a chapter on sleep, because it's important not to forget that your body does need to rest and rejuvenate. And then he has an interesting final chapter, which I was just joking with someone about a self-help book having a twist ending. That's kind of what this last chapter felt like, because he talks about emotional health. And it almost seems like a different book. And in a way, I think it should have been another book. I think he should have saved the last chapter and expanded that into a separate book, and then it would have been great. You'd have one for physical health and one for mental health, and it would have been a cool double combination to have. Because in the last chapter, he gets into a lot of insights into how to regulate your emotional self, and he tells a lot of personal stories about seeing psychiatrists and his personal battle with depression and how he overcame a lot of obstacles, which was actually very insightful, and I didn't see that coming. I thought it would be he would stick to more of the physical health ideas that he was talking about throughout the rest of the book. So long story short, I now feel like Chris Traeger from Parks and Rec.
Scientists believe that the first human being who will live 150 years has already been born. I believe I am that human being.
So I'm gonna give this 4.5 stars.